This is the AW-UE80, a 4K PTZ camera from Panasonic. I also have the AW-RP60 PTZ camera controller, but more about the controller later in this video. First, we want to focus on the camera. Actually, when Panasonic reached out to me to send this camera, I reached out to a local church that does live stream every Sunday like many other churches, and I asked them if they could test this camera for a month and actually tell me what they thought about it. So we are going to unpack what's so special about this camera and what got the pastors to say this.
We really loved the PTZs from Panasonic.
And of course, we're gonna be talking about some of the reasons why this camera may not be right for you. So let's go. Usually there are a few reasons why people like using PTZ camera. One, they are so easy to control. Two, if you have an issue where you probably don't have enough staff to control multiple cameras, it's easier to assign one person to be able to control multiple PTZ cameras. Three, it's actually super easy to be able to get movement from position A to B. You can set up some presets on PTZ camera. Just by pressing a button, you're gonna be able to get a movement, a nice movement that looks like it was taken by a gimbal or a crane, something that would be super expensive usually to get. Another reason is usually one controller is enough to be able to control multiple cameras, program presets, and of course in all the movements that you want, and be able to get professional shots for your production. So this PTZ camera from Panasonic is no different. Of course, it came with a controller, and I was able to play with it before I ship it to the church, and the church, of course, they had fun with it and they kind of liked it.
All right, my name is Matthew Turpin. I'm from Ottawa, Ontario. We have a large congregation where we use cameras for our services because we do live streams online. We also film to put it on YouTube or social media after. And it's all handheld cameras, Sony cameras. But now we've tried this new Panasonic PTZ camera, which is amazing because sometimes we lack the staffing to film our Sunday services, and now we had the PTZ we were trying out. It was really amazing. Able to preset different scenarios, different scenes on stage, and also transition between each shot. We had our producer there. He was able to control the camera himself. No need to tell the more right, left, like more headspace, all that. We could just control it manually. So it's really amazing for that. So we really loved the PTZs from Panasonic.
So this camera, of course, as I said, it does shoot in 4K. So you can get 4K 60 frames per second, which is amazing. You can still get 4K in 30 frames per second. As you know, this is a PTZ camera, so it wouldn't be a PTZ if it couldn't actually zoom up to 24 times optical zoom. It does support 3D. That's mostly for other usage. If you are into AR and VR stuff, that's something that this camera is gonna be able to give you that. Another crucial thing, it supports variable white balance. In case you want to match this camera to other cameras or to your lights, to your key lights, you're gonna be able to actually dial in your actual white balance, which is super handy. And of course, that's gonna help you to actually match some other cameras that you may already have, of course, to match your key lighting. It does have some built-in ND filters if you need that. Maybe your place is super bright and you kind of need to dim it a little bit. ND filters, that's gonna be super helpful. But other than that, it does support 42 to 10-bit. And of course, you're gonna see it, the fact that it supports 10-bit, the colors are kind of popping, which is really good and something that I appreciate about this camera. Last but not least, of course, it's gonna give you SDI connectivity and HDMI. Now, for SDI, you're gonna be able to only get 1080p out of it, so you're not gonna be able to get 4K out of SDI. And then for HDMI, that's where you're gonna be able to get 4K. So if you're planning on using this camera in 4K, remember, especially if you're live streaming, you're gonna have to use the HDMI out option. So these are the key features and some of the reasons why I liked this camera. But of course, I wouldn't say that for the sake of saying it. That's why I actually took it to this church, for me to be able to gather the footage for you guys to see what you can get from this camera. Like many other PTZ cameras, one of the complaints they get a lot is the sensor size. So this camera features actually 1/2.5 sensor size, which is really tiny compared to something like micro four third or full frame. And what that means is you may not get good results if you're filming in low light, or you're not gonna be able to get something called depth of field or like a blurry background if you're shooting like close-ups and stuff like that.
When we dealt with low lighting, because we sometimes have lower lighting for our worship services, and then during the message section we have a bit more lighting, and the camera wasn't fuzzy or grainy. The imagery was quite stable throughout the entire low light times and when there's regular lighting, so that was good as well from Panasonic.
As you can see, this is where they have the camera installed. They're running SDI back to the control room. This is where they're actually controlling the camera from. As you can see, the controller, the RP60, is actually besides their switcher, and they have one person controlling the camera. Of course, if they had multiple cameras, they could do the same thing, you know, just be able to connect multiple PTZ cameras and the same person is gonna be able to control them, no problem. So with this controller, of course, you're gonna be able to do all the movements like any other PTZ camera controller. You're gonna be able to do zooming, panning, tilting, and of course you can connect multiple cameras by simply connecting an Ethernet cable. So you got an Ethernet cable going to the PTZ camera, and the same PTZ camera has another Ethernet port, and that Ethernet port can link to another PTZ camera in case they had another one without having to connect another Ethernet cable into the controller. Now if you wanted, because the controller has multiple Ethernet ports, you could connect directly multiple cameras kind of coming directly into the controller. That's another option of connecting the cameras.
I would also see myself using multiple PTZ cameras, different angles, have some on the stage, and it's all controllable with one controller, which is amazing. Would love to be able to do that and probably have just one cameraman in the center, but have everything else PTZs all the way. It would simplify our work, our staffing requirements. It's an amazing camera all around, especially if I had multiple cameras. We could put them in, and they're small, right? So we can put them almost anywhere and they're not really visible. So that's what's nice about the PTZ. If you have a cameraman, you definitely see him. You can't just put him on stage, he'll be there. You see him clearly, but with the PTZs is you can just put him even on rails or whatever you want. I think it's a great option.
We are recording songs and a complete teaching, and this is really helpful for us to have to be able to rely on one PTZ that we can put there or program for any corner in the sanctuary, and it's top notch and it's easy to get it. We just hit the button and it's there.
Now, according to Panasonic, the RP60 can actually control up to 100 PTZ cameras. And of course, in my opinion, that's kind of overkill. Why would you want to connect up to 100 PTZ cameras? But again, depending on use case scenarios, you never know. If you want it, you have it. And as you can see, of course, it has a nice LCD display, and that's gonna allow you to see all the controls for multiple PTZ cameras. One thing that I like about it mostly is really the ability to be able to assign presets. It's actually super easy to record presets and kind of save them into the controller for any camera that may be connected to it, and be able to trigger those presets, and of course be able to even trigger the movement speed. So usually how it works, you just zoom in or zoom out, you just pick a position and then save it as a position, right? And then go to another preset button, pick another position, and then have it kind of save it as a position. And then what you do, you can set a movement speed from position A to B, and that's gonna give you a smooth transition to a particular position in your set, which create a nice kind of panning or zooming or gimbal shot movement or slider shot movement, which is usually super hard to get. So that's mostly it about the controller. Of course, you can do a lot of things like I don't want to go deeply into it because it's just an amazing tool to have, and of course comes with a price. So let's say if you don't have the budget to actually get the controller, Panasonic does have a web interface that you can actually use to connect your camera and be able to control it through an interface, which is gonna be 100% free. So if you're not ready to invest in the controller, you should not worry, because you could still control the camera using a web interface. The image actually looked good. I was shockingly in love with the PTZ camera. It looks so good. The movements look so good. And surprisingly, because I use Sony camcorders, the PTZ camera was easily able to match their other cameras, and you couldn't tell the difference. It looked like they were the same brand or whatever. But the key, if you don't know, usually if the first thing you need to do is you make sure the white balance is the same. So if you're the fact that this camera has variable white balance, they were able to match everything, and it looked like the cameras were just the same.
It was a good match with our other camera. We had three Sonys, and the Panasonic was, I mean, you could not really differentiate the quality between them.
That was something they really appreciated a lot. And myself, when I saw it, I was like, wow, this is a perfect match. And that's why they ended up actually wanting to buy it, because it was just good. I mean, you guys can look at the footage and everything, and it was just wow. And they were not using even the 4K function because they were streaming in 1080p. So what are my thoughts about this camera? Now, if you are into PTZ camera, or if you need a PTZ camera, you already know. If you need this technology to be part of your live streaming, you already know. This camera is gonna be really, really good. You're going to like the fact that it's future proof, of course, because it does record in 4K 60, but it's not perfect. Why am I saying that? The fact that it has a small sensor, if you shooting, let's say if you doing your events in places like churches or covering events where the lighting's kind of dimmed a little bit, as you can see, these guys, they had decent okay lighting. As you can see, the stage is well lit, and of course the congregation is kind of pitch black. So in these situations where, let's say if you need to get a shot of the congregation, you can see the camera is going to start struggling a little bit. The footage is gonna be a little bit noisier. It's not gonna be really kind of crispy, clear, nice looking footage, kind of dark blacks, because it's a small sensor. So it's going to struggle a little bit. However, if you taking a shot, they say a wide shot or a medium shot of the stage, including the congregation, I think it does look good. You can see the black, dark part of the image and the bright part of the image really looks good. The colors look good, the LED lights and everything look good, and I think it's a good looking shot. In my opinion, I would recommend, if you want to use this camera for this type of events, to focus on wide angles, movements, and of course a little bit of medium shots. That's my personal recommendation, and I think this is where the camera is going to shine more. Now, if you want to do close-ups or take some shots of darker places in your room, I think this camera is not going to do wow. Of course, it's gonna get you a shot, but it's not gonna be like a super wow shot that I would say, you know, this is the perfect camera for that kind of shot. I would say maybe get a DSLR or get another camera with a bigger sensor that's going to be able to handle that kind of pitch black kind of looking image, or that kind of close-up where you need the background separation, because that's another thing you're not gonna get from a camera with a small sensor, is you're not gonna be able to get that kind of blurry background. Mostly when you trying to get a close-up, you need to kind of separate the main subject from the background. That's where the shot kind of pops out and looks more professional. So the camera, of course, like any other PTZ camera, is gonna save you time. You're not gonna need a lot of stuff to get good looking shots and everything. Of course, this is gonna be super helpful. Again, as just mentioned, in low light, you can still see that small sensor thing is gonna kind of show, right? This footage right here, I'm just gonna zoom in a little bit just to show you. You can see there's a little bit of grain. You can play with the settings and try to get it perfect, but that small sensor effect is gonna show at some point. So it's not bad, it's not that bad, but I just wanted you guys to know that it's gonna be there. So make sure you have good lighting, that is bright enough for the camera sensor. Of course, make sure you use it mostly for medium shots and wide angles, because that's where the camera is going to shine really. Another thing is gonna be the price. So this is a high-end camera. As you can see, the material is really good. Everything is 100% metal, the controller, the camera, and everything. So there's a price tag that comes with this camera, over 5K actually. So that's not something that anyone can afford. So in my opinion, that's probably gonna be one of the limiting factors for most people. However, if you have the budget for it, I think it's a good investment, looking at the fact that it's actually 4K 60, so that means it's gonna be really future proof. However, I actually talked to Panasonic. They may have some lower budget cameras, and I'm assuming you can expect the same kind of sensor and some of the features you're finding from this camera may be in those cameras as well. So if I get some suggestions, I'll make sure I post links down below for you guys, especially if you are on a budget. But other than that, the camera is fantastic. I forgot to mention that it actually does support NDI, which is fantastic. So when it comes to connectivity, I think you're gonna be happy with the camera. So thanks again to Panasonic for sending this camera over for review. Again, no money exchange. They sent me the camera, I sent it to the church. The church loved it, they wanted to buy it, but unfortunately it was just a demo camera. I had to return it to Panasonic, so I'm not keeping the camera. They're not paying me for this review. I'm super thankful to Panasonic for sending me this camera for testing. And again, thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful, and I hope this is gonna help you make a decision if this is the camera for you. I'm gonna try to put all the links that I can find about this camera, all the specs. If you wanna kind of read through all the specs, just know more about the camera, and some other Panasonic cameras maybe that may match the same image quality at a lower cost. Everything, all the resources will be posted down below if you are interested. But other than that, guys, my name is Sam. You're watching Lab Production Tips and Tools, and I will see you guys on my next video. Take care.